I bought some fragrances from DS&Durga. I just bought a sampler. For those of you who are not familiar with DS&Durga, they're a fragrance house. I'm newer to the fragrance game, and I feel like I've gotten the vibe that DS&Durga make pretty unique fragrances. And those are the kind of fragrances that I'm really into. I really like something that feels unique, something with a presence, and that was what I was hoping to get with these. This is kind of like a review, but also I'm going to explain the fragrances to you. If you've not seen my first ever fragrance video, I will link it up in the cards for you. I'm going to go through the 4 scents I tried, describe them to you by vibe, by feeling, then give you the notes of them that are like actually there from the website. I'm not great at picking up notes myself yet. I'm sure that's a skill I'm going to build in time, but as of right now, I'm like still kind of learning what all of those things kind of mean. And then I will wrap up with my opinion on them. So this was $40 to buy this sampler pack, but if I were interested to buy a full-size product, I would get $40 off that product. They actually already sent that code to me. Actually, the code was emailed to me before I even got this in the mail. I kind of like this, which is, it's so nothing, but I'm like, this is cute. So I got the fragrances I Don't Know What, Steamed Rainbow, Radio Bombay, and Jazmin Yucatan. Steamed Rainbow was what I really wanted to try. That was the one that I was the most interested in. That was the propelling purchase. Now there is one place where I live in Pittsburgh that sells DS&Durga. They don't carry all of the scents, and it's a little bit of a stuffy kind of boutique, and I'm not always about that. It's not a place that I feel like I want to be or make a purchase from. That's not to say that the people who are there are bad. I've never actually gone in. So, but I know that they don't have Steamed Rainbow because I checked their website before. All that being said, let's get into my descriptions of the scents for you. So we'll start with I Don't Know What. To me, this is giving the vibe. It's a spring day. It's the first day it's like actually warm. I'm not talking about like the first day it hits in the 60s. I'm talking it's like the first day where we're like in the upper 70s in spring. And perhaps we're putting out our laundry in the backyard to dry. But don't think of like that typical cotton scent. Like I feel like there's like that typical like just like straight up like what you think of fresh laundry. Like a lot of fragrances like call like that fragrance like a laundry type of fragrance. It's not like that. It's definitely like you're like happy that it's warm. You know, there's that vibe of like, you know, white sheets blowing in the wind. Like it's just very much kind of like giving me that energy. Everything is bright. The colors are bright. Everything is, it's just beautiful and there's just warmth to it. That's the vibe that I get from this fragrance. Let me look on DS&Durga's website. The top notes are bergamot essence. I think, but it says bergamot and then it says essence. So I don't know if it's bergamot and then essence, but like can essence just be a thing? But I guess I kind of understand that like based on the way that this fragrance smells. The heart notes are Iso E Super and vetiver acetate, and then the base notes are Civitone, Furcental, and Ambrox Super. I was watching Lauren May Fragrances channel, so like Lauren May Beauty also has a fragrance channel. She compared another fragrance that I wasn't familiar with this, but then she also compared it to the Juliet Has a Gun fragrance. What's it called? What is the one, like Juliet Has a Gun has like their one fragrance that's like that made them really popular. And like I've heard this type of scent be described as a skin scent, and I feel like it gives that vibes. I feel like another fragrance I have, but I feel like is a lot different than this, is the Salt from Ellis Brooklyn, but it's not like that at all. Like it's not, doesn't smell like that. It gives me the same vibe where it's like very sexy and very cool, but like definitely the kind of thing that like is designed for you and like what you want to smell. It's not like a fragrance that I feel like one puts on to impress other people. This is like, I like this smell and I really like this. And I think I read on their website that they say this is like a great layering fragrance, which I can also see. It's like, it's certainly there. It certainly has a presence. But I also like, I think other things would play really well with it. Like it doesn't feel like a fussy kind of fragrance. It's just kind of very much like a cool, like, I feel like the Tumblr girls of 2014, this would have been like the fragrance that they would wear. Glossier You, it gives me like that vibe. And I've smelled Glossier You, but I don't think it smells like that. But it's like that kind of thing where just like, it's like a signature fragrance for a very particular type of person. That's like how it feels to me. It's not giving much, but it's giving. The bergamot, I guess I can smell that, but I feel like I'm not really familiar with all of the other like notes that we just mentioned. I would have to like look into them a little bit more. But yeah, so for me overall with this fragrance, it's not like a fragrance that is for me, but I could definitely finish up the sample of it. Like it's just, I like something that's a little beefier. something that has more of a presence. I like something with a lot of throw. I want people to smell me before they see me, which I know is like an unpopular opinion. I like my fragrance to carry. Friday night, I was out clubbing and someone came up to me and said I smelled so good. And I was wearing a layer. I layered a couple fragrances, but like, guess why? Because those fragrances people could smell. And let me tell you, whenever you're in a nightclub and a bunch of people are sweaty and dancing around you, sometimes it doesn't smell so good. So to get that compliment, take it. I run. Let's talk about Radio Bombay next. This one I kind of threw in because it was just a popular fragrance. I feel like a lot of people I know wear this or have mentioned liking it. So let's give it a sniff. This is the one I've worn the least. Not so much because I don't like it. It's just more like it's the least interesting one to me so far. So this one gives me like, it's chilly day vibes actually. It's like, it's kind of giving that kind of like, has like a little bit of a crispness to it that I associate with like those days where it's like the first fog, you know, like it kind of gives me that energy. It doesn't really have like a aquatic sense in it to my nose. It's almost kind of giving this is so specific. The neighborhood I grew up in had a pond and there was like a walkway around the pond and it kind of like this reminds me of like being at the pond where I grew up because it was like also I lived in like suburbia. And so like behind the pond was just like a lot of trees. I wouldn't call it like a forest or anything, but like, you know, like, so like there was a baseball field and then behind the baseball field, behind the pond, there was just like a lot of green. And it was just, it gives me so much green. Like, I guess like verdant would be like the feeling that I get from it. But like that kind of smell whenever it's like a little bit wet, it's just kind of giving me that essence, that little, like that little essence of like, green, a little wet greenness. It's not as bright as the last fragrance. Like I'm not getting, the colors I'm seeing aren't as vibrant, but I guess that makes sense if I'm thinking like fall crisp day. But the leaves haven't turned yet. It's just starting to get cold. Like everything still looks really green. It's like we're on the precipice of it all dying. Happy thoughts. Let's look at the notes. So top notes, radiant wood, copper, cedar. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, we were in like, there's a lot of trees around me when in this vision that I was seeing. Heart notes, sandalwood, radiant iris, baronia. Base notes, balsam fir, absolute, coconut musk, and ambergris. Whenever I read that, there are a lot of notes in there that have been in fragrances that I have enjoyed before. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy this fragrance. There is, and this is kind of a thesis overall that I should really say for the end, but I'm going to say it now. A lot of the fragrances that have had like sandalwood in it to me have always had like such a strong presence, but it's so, for the lack of a better term, like weak. In this, like, there's just no hardiness. Like, when I say beefiness, it's just like I mean like a presence. I think if this had more of an oomph giving out, that I would love it. It's like almost like they didn't want to turn the volume all the way up on this. It's like something and it's special, but it's not giving. Like it's not giving like the last fragrance. I was like, I feel like it's giving, but not giving. This one's just not giving. I just wish it had more. Like, I feel like the fragrances that I like to wear are a little more specific. All of those notes are pretty strong. Like those are like in a lot of other fragrances. And obviously every fragrance house is going to like play with notes differently and like give them something different to land on. They made a choice to do like something interesting with those notes. But then we're like, will people like this? And instead of committing all of the way, it's like they turned the volume down halfway. Like they turned like how intense or unique that could smell and turned it down. And I'm not saying that this fragrance is like, I feel like a dime a dozen. It doesn't smell. It's like, it does have its own, it takes up its own space in the universe, right? I don't think I could say it smells like something else, but it's just like, it's not giving me a wow factor. It's not wowing me. Next up, we have Jazmin Yucatan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing Yucatan correctly, but that's the next one we're going to spell. I feel like this has been my second, spoiler, I think this has been my second favorite of the scents that I got to try. This is like, we're on the edge of, and I've never been to a jungle, so bear with me. It's like, we're like we're at the edge of the jungle. Maybe we're in the jungle. Maybe we're in the jungle because it's kind of giving me, you know how we were just like damp right outside of the forest? This gives me like dampness because we are inside the forest. It hasn't rained recently, but everything still has that wetness because like everything's covered, but it is sunny out in this instance. And so there is sun coming through the trees and like leaving a beautiful pattern. I think there's a word for that. I don't know what it is. And it's almost as if I'm carrying, this sounds so weird. Like I just bought a leather bag and I also have that with me in this area and I can still smell the newness of the leather. And perhaps, I don't even know if this is possible, if there is some kind of like bright florals that can grow in such a situation with that kind of lighting in the middle of the woods, that's also there. Okay, let's look at the notes. Top notes, water, passion flower and bergamot. Heart notes, jasmine, yucatico, sambac, and clove. Base notes, snake plant, vetiver, copal. So I definitely get the florals. I'm normally bad at like picking up florals, and obviously I wouldn't have been able to like name those specific florals. I just don't have that kind of skill yet. But I caught the water, and I have learned about myself in actually the first video where I talked about fragrance, is that like aquatic is what really resonates with me the most. And then I really like musky, like it's like water and then musk is like kind of like the two like generalizations that I really fall into. There's also a little bit of there's a little bit of an air of like a fresh like basketball, some kind of, it's so weird. I don't mean this in a bad way. There's a little feeling of like fresh rubber, recently unplasticed rubber, like a rubber ball. And like, it's funny because it does really remind me of that, but like that could also be a big turnoff to some people, but it really kind of gives that energy. Just like Radio Bombay. I'm going to try to use a different metaphor. Whenever I think of like, it's like, it stays here and it never gets here, right? Like it never like gets down in it. Like, it's like, wow, that's a really interesting and beautiful smell. But it stays sparkly on top, you know, it doesn't get in it. And like, that's what I want. Like and it's not that it's not like I do like a strong presence in a fragrance, but I'm not talking about like, if you're familiar with like Alien from Mugler, I find that like pretty, it's not some, I think that's like a wow, bam in a bad way. This is so close to a fragrance that I would really would want to wear. So close, but it doesn't get there. It doesn't take, okay, really weird example. So Brat just came out not that long ago, Charlie XCX's new album. And I think sonically it's like up here and it's sparkling and razzle dazzle. But then you listen to the lyrics and you like unwrap the lyrics and you're like, oh wow, Charlie's like in there singing about something. This just doesn't have that depth. It just doesn't go there. And it's so confusing to me because I feel like every time I've heard someone talk about these kind of the fragrances from DS&Durga, it's like, that's what I was expecting. So I don't know if it's like a expectation reality situation where like, I'm just being let down by, I feel like a lot of people think that these are really crazy, funky, unique scents that would be like hard to wear. And I don't find that any of them are like that. And I'm not saying that they're like DS&Durga is like going out of their way to be unpleasant with their fragrances. I think like their fragrances sound like they're risky, but like I think that they could go, I think they could push it harder and still make it smell really good. So I feel like this just again kind of like fails to get there for me. I'm in Chicago and I'm on like the trail that walks right across Lake Michigan. I forget what it's actually called. And if you walk a little bit off the trail, there are like these things that you can sit and watch the lake. So you're like, imagine you're sitting just looking at Lake Michigan and like it rained overnight and you're watching the sunrise and the clouds are still gray, but the sun's breaking through the clouds a little bit. And you have a little bit of that, the colorful sunrise, but it's not too much. And it's only really peeking around the edges of the clouds because the clouds feel like they're lower, like the clouds are a little bit lower, moving quicker, taking the color with them. Oh, wow. I guess what an accurate, sorry, it's called Steamed Rainbow, and I wasn't going off of that. Like, I was like, but like, I am kind of like around the perimeter of the clouds that are like floating by in the sky. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a rainbow vibe. We're not really in the Biv. We're mostly in the Roig. The green's behind us because there's a big, soccer field behind us. I'm like speaking of a very specific part of this trail, like that I've sat in front of before. And I don't know that it actually smells like this, but this is what this is where it takes me. This is the fragrance that most often gets recommended to me because I do like petrichor, the rainy, just rained smell. Like I really like it. I think that a couple brands do it a little bit differently. I like ozonic fragrances too, and I feel like people hear me describe my preferences, and like this fragrance is like always the one that people like land on. They're like, I think they'll really like this, and I do. Like I do really like it. But just like every other fragrance from this brand, I feel like the landing just doesn't get stuck, right? It's like we did all the flips, we hit all the notes for you, and then like like we land and fall over. It's just we land and fall over. Like it's almost, but not quite. I feel like there's probably a better, like more official term for like what I'm trying to relay to you. But also, if you're watching my channel and you're not super into fragrance, we're learning together. It's kind of the, okay, if you've ever smelled Tom Ford fragrances, I also feel like, wow, bam, in your face. And I think that's like a little bit of a, like, it's, some people are going to really like that. And it's also going to turn some people away. It's almost as if DS&Durga, with all of the fragrances, at least that I've smelled, are the opposite of Tom Ford, where it's like they just don't have like a wow factor, whether it's a good wow factor or a bad wow factor. It's like I think these all smell good, but it's like it's just like we're just not getting, it's just not getting me there. It's just not, it's like everything smells good. I like everything I smell, and then it just like it doesn't take me all the way. The top notes are red mandarin, orange, yellow elemi, and resin. The heart notes are green cedar, blue almond, flower, indigo grass, and the base notes are violet, vetiver, and vapors, which I feel like that vapor smell is really what I like and the smell that I smell the most. I have learned that some floral notes can also, I feel like, trick my nose into thinking it's floral, but that also is like when we're thinking about like wet plant. There could be wet flowers involved too, right? And that has a certain kind of smell, like a, you know, wet dog has a certain kind of smell. It's so funny because I said I feel the Roy, and the top notes are red mandarin, orange, and yellow elemi. And now I'm seeing that there's Roy G. Biv in the notes. Clever. You're a clever girl, DS&Durga. Clever girl. And then all the base notes start with V. There's another fragrance that I really like that's an aquatic fragrance. It is, and it has like a fruit top note, and I can't pick up that fruit top note because I think it goes with all the other things to make that watery, fresh rain smell. Why can't I think of what it's called? It's one of the scents from the Harmonist, Sacred Water. Watermelon's one of the top notes, and I cannot smell the watermelon in it to save my life. And I if you would have told me that it had watermelon in it, I would have avoided it, you know, right? So like sometimes there is something to taking the notes into account, but also just being open to smelling something, because there, a long time ago, I would have said I will never wear a patchouli scent, and I feel like there's patchouli notes in a lot of the fragrances I like, because it can be done well. I think that sometimes when it comes to fragrances, it's really best not to, you know, think too much about the notes, because it is more about the experience of all of those things coming together. Because I will flippantly say that I don't like rose fragrances, but that's not true, because I have smelled fragrances that have had a lot of rose in them that I've really enjoyed. Like, that was all to say, just like, isn't that interesting? Because I wouldn't have guessed that there would have been this many florals in it, but there's like, I guess there are a lot. Here's the thing. So I have that $40 credit to DS&Durga because I bought this sampler pack. And I'm not sure I'm actually going to use it because, well, I feel like nothing gets there. And I think another reason that I feel like none of these fragrances really get there is that they have no wear time on me. Almost none. So, for example, the other day I put Steamed Rainbow on. I sprayed both wrists, and I sprayed my neck, and I made sure to get some of it on the clothes too, because sometimes I feel like if you get it a little bit on the clothes, that's like helpful. Like sometimes the clothes will carry it sometimes better than the skin, or I can smell it on the clothes better than the skin. I sprayed myself right before we met up, and it was maybe an hour in, and I was like, "Can you smell my arm?" And she's like, I can't even smell like the remnants of a fragrance. And that's a big bummer for me. It's so funny because with makeup, and it's not the same thing, I'm not like always super concerned with longevity. I would like at least a couple of hours, like 3 to 4 hours. And I do think that there's a direct correlation between it not lasting on my skin and it lacking that oomph, that whatever I think that all of these, it's like it lacking that depth that's correlated, because I feel like all of that sparkly stuff is normally what leaves the fragrance first, right? Like that's what you smell on impact, but like a few hours from then you're really smelling like the base notes. We have to bring up the bass notes, like pump that bass, like get some more of that in there, because it feels more to me like the bass is that, at least in most of my fragrances, the bass notes are always what I feel like I can smell a few hours down the line, but I can't even smell anything a few hours down the line. And that's really unfortunate. It'd be one thing if their fragrances were less expensive. And I don't even think that DS&Durga, by the way, is based on what I have learned about fragrance so far, is even priced incredibly high. Like, it's definitely expensive, but like, I've paid more for a bottle of fragrance. I feel like at that price point, my expectations for longevity are higher, and I just get like no wear time out of this. If I bought a full-size bottle of one of these fragrances, or even took a blind buy and one of the ones I didn't try, but it's like all four of them. It's not just like one of them. It's like all four of them have no longevity on me. It would just be a waste of an additional $170 if I bought the small size. I think they all like are priced around $210 for the 50 ml. I just don't know that it's worth it, actually. And that's not everyone's experience, obviously. I know a lot of people who really like DS&Durga fragrances and were really excited for me to try these, but like, my experience with them is cool fragrances, very sparkly, very bright. Even the ones that feel like they're gonna have more to them still live in that spangle, but just, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely for someone. It's unfortunately, I don't think that they're for me, which is a bit of a bummer because it's like, I think that their branding's cool. I think that I like the fragrances that they make are always so interesting, even if I haven't smelled them. Like like looking at the notes, I'm like, wow, well, I can't even begin to imagine what that would smell like. And I can't get into it. I can't, unfortunately. I feel bad. I feel less confident giving a negative fragrance review because it's like I still don't know a lot, and I feel like I'm saying things that like don't make a lot of sense, but hopefully to you, if you're still like new to fragrance, some of that made sense to you. Anyway, that wraps up the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations as far as like petrichor scents or any scents that you think are really interesting and beefy, let me know. I don't mean like a note of beef. I just mean like have some heft to them. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you like DS&Durga? And if you do, what's your favorite one? Is there something that I'm doing wrong? Like, I don't really understand. I wasn't crushing the fragrance or anything like that, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. And it's just so strange that I get like no wear time out of all of these. Subscribe to my channel. My channel is mostly about loving the things that I already own before making a purchase. And when I do decide to make a purchase, I try to be really considerate about it. Most of the time I'm talking about makeup here, but that's going to go for fragrance. It's a new thing that I'm into. And I don't want to spend a ton of money just buying new fragrances. I have a lot of fragrances I love. And like exploring fragrances is expensive. Even if you're buying decanted fragrances, it adds up really quickly because I've also done that too. And I talk about fashion here as well. So I would just love to have you subscribe. Make sure you like this video, share this video with someone you might think will find it interesting. And I'm on Patreon and have channel memberships. I do some additional content over there. We've been vlogging. People have been liking the vlogs, so I'm trying that out. I need to get better microphones for vlogging if I'm going to keep it up. But check out that. There's no pressure to join my Patreon. Do it if you'd like. If you don't have any money or you simply don't want to, I'm not offended. That's great. Make your own choices. I know it's tough out here money-wise for all of us right now. And that's it. Remember to follow your haute, and you'll find me. I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth, tits out.